Good Friday morning, everyone. We are back for the 11 a.m. Hurricane Dorian update. It was just released by the National Weather Service. If you give me a second, I'm going to pull up this live stream on my phone and prop it up so that way I can see comments when they come in. If you guys do have any questions that you need to ask, you can just shoot them in there, and I'm going to do my best to try to answer those for you. So I got the live stream up now. We can get started. If you have questions, again, hopefully I can answer most of them while we're doing this live stream. And if you do have any specific ones, just shoot them in the comments. I'll do my best to try to look down there while I'm giving you this update. So the latest look for Hurricane Dorian, still a Category 2. That's the latest one. Max winds at 110 miles per hour. If you take a look at the visible satellite and look at what Dorian's done over the past few hours, look right in the middle there. You see this eye starting to develop. The eye is clearing out, and we are seeing that better symmetry, a more classic hurricane look. And once that eye clears out, we are looking at development and intensification becoming a little bit more quickly. So we are expecting Dorian to become a Category 3 hurricane still today. If we play through the latest track for you, still a Category 2. You got max winds at 110 miles per hour. Category 3 is 111 miles per hour. We are 1 mile per hour away. We're going to get there today. We're going to have again, Category 3 major hurricane. One of these outlooks probably this afternoon or later tonight. Gusts up to 130. The latest track. So there are some changes here in the track. Again, it keeps getting later and later. This is not an ideal scenario. We are looking at Dorian now making landfall here in kind of the same area around the Treasure Coast, south central Florida, right on the east coast sometime Tuesday morning. So yesterday we were talking about a Labor Day hurricane for the east coast of Florida. Today we are talking about a Tuesday, day after Labor Day, landfalling a hurricane. Impacts will still be felt beginning Monday for those folks along the east coast. So the latest track here, it has shifted east a bit once it makes it inland, which that is good news for us here. Locally speaking, this is speaking for North Florida and South Georgia. The further east we see the track go, the less of an impact Dorian will have on our local forecast and the less of those direct impacts we may see. So we got Dorian slowing down here in the Bahamas. Bahamas right now, real warm water. You got low shear. It's pretty favorable for intensification for a tropical system. So that's likely what we're going to see in the next couple of days. Again, up to a Category 3 by the weekend, getting up to a Category 4. Major hurricane. We'll be seeing those max winds. It says 140 miles per hour Monday morning. That's when it's still offshore. So we're expecting landfall Tuesday on the east coast of Florida. For those folks in that area, pretty much up and down the I-95 corridor, that time to get ready, it's right now. Hey, Brady.
Hey.
I'm live right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
After the noon show, I want to shoot a weather problem with you.
Gotcha.
So it'll be over.
Okay, I'll get with you then. All right, so Dorian, again, these folks along the east central coast of Florida, pretty much up and down the I-95 corridor through central Florida, that time to prepare is now. Those preparations should be complete by the weekend. That's when we want to get those done by. Now here, locally speaking, up in North Florida, not really a rush, I would say. Probably the time if you want to fill up the gas tank just in case gas gets expensive, in case you start seeing some bigger lines there. Doesn't hurt. Assess your readiness plan, check your kits. It doesn't hurt to have a hurricane readiness kit prepared. Again, hurricane season is still young. You got the entire month of September. That's historically the most active month in the tropics, and that's coming up on us. You got another wave off the coast of Africa that we're going to be talking about here soon, but it wouldn't hurt to get that supply kit ready for us here in the Panhandle. So zoomed in look at this track, still again showing that Tuesday morning landfall. About 8 a.m. you see it just moving on shore. Now this is a slow mover. If you guys recall Hurricane Michael last year, which I'm sure many of us do, Hurricane Michael moved quick. Now it developed, it was a Category 5. It was a strong hurricane. This is only forecasted to be a Category 4. I say only, but comparing it to Michael now, Michael was a quick mover. We made landfall, and that thing was up through the Panhandle, through Georgia, in the span of a couple of hours. Now look at the difference in this forecast. Tuesday, 8 a.m., you got it right here. And then Wednesday, 8 a.m., 24 hours later, just up I-75, kind of close to that Ocala, Gainesville area. This is a slow mover, and that adds additional threats on top of what is already a landfalling major hurricane, which has enough threats its own sense. But When you get these slow movers, that's going to give this storm plenty of time to drop heavy rainfall and put these areas under these hurricane force winds for hours at a time. That's not good. I'm going to quote this. This is from the National Hurricane Center's discussion this morning, talking about this slower moving storm potentially stalling out, but with the rainfall potential now. It says the biggest concern will be Dorian's slow motion when it is near Florida, placing some areas of the state at an increasing risk of a prolonged, drawn-out event of strong winds, dangerous storm surge, and heavy rainfall. So again, we had Michael here. It was a Category 5. It did its damage, but we weren't looking at that inland flooding, flash flooding as really a primary threat. This is just thrown on top of all the Category 4 hurricane threats that you get. You'll get the storm surge with those low-lying areas down in south central Florida. So again, this is a forecast that we need to watch. Locally speaking, again, there's a lot left undecided. A lot more confidence in this landfall on the East Coast. Again, that's why those folks need to be getting prepared now. We're going to talk more about what it means for our forecast and how it's going to affect us. Again, we are 1 mile per hour away from a Cat 3. Right now we got these max winds at 110, and we are pretty much maxed out on the Category 2 scale. Would it be Tuesday before we got anything in Woodville area of Tallahassee? Yeah, early next week looks like we'll start to see some moisture work in, but there's so much uncertainty once you get past 4 or 5 days that we can't guarantee any local impacts. That's why I got a graphic coming up that's kind of going to be an intuitive way to know what we can expect here, at least based off the track. Hurricane watch is in effect for the Northwest Bahamas. That means hurricane conditions are possible within the next 48 hours. I'd imagine that we're going to start seeing some of those hurricane watches in effect for parts of South Florida probably by tomorrow. So Dorian steering flow, a lot of questions here, and how it's going to impact its path is pretty important for us. Let's go back to that and play it through. Right now, the Bahamas, it's in a pretty nice environment to get strong. Like bath water out there, low wind shear. Again, we saw Dorian on the satellite imagery this morning. That eye is clearing out. That's not good news, but for Dorian, it's good news because it's going to be able to strengthen. That's what these hurricanes feed off of. You get this high pressure off towards the East Coast, and as soon as that thing works eastward in the Atlantic and kind of breaks down and weakens, we will be able to see Dorian have kind of an escape route up to the north. So the sooner the better for that. Again, if it stays off in the Atlantic, just on the East Coast, that's sparing Tallahassee from the brunt of the impact. Now, as you get through the next couple days, that's the big question really on how fast it moves or how fast it weakens to give Dorian that place to go. If it's strong and it really holds there, it's going to steer it right into Florida and potentially into the Gulf. That potential looks like it's kind of lowering those probabilities, but there still is at least a low-end chance. So this is the graphic that I want to show you guys. For anyone asking specific locations, whether it's Crawfordville, I see right there Crawfordville, here in Tallahassee up towards Valdosta, this graphic is going to be kind of all-encompassing for our area. It's too early to exactly pinpoint impacts. Again, down towards the east coast of Florida, it's getting to that time where you know they're going to be impacted by a major hurricane sometime early next week. But for us, we are still beyond the 5-day cone once you get up through parts of North Florida and I-10. So we're still a little bit more undecided, more uncertainty. So let's potentially kind of lay out these scenarios for you. Imagine these 3 hurricane icons being on each side of the cone. So kind of the extreme at the end of the 5 days. You got one going right up the center, you got one veering out more towards the Atlantic, and then you have one making it into the Gulf. And we're going to talk about what that means for our forecast. So this graphic right here, that's going to be for people who live in North Florida along I-10 here in the Big Bend, or if you live in South Georgia. If you're watching from South Florida, from Central Florida, this graphic is not for you. This is for our local coverage area. Looking at the track that the National Hurricane Center is suggesting right now, it's most like this yellow one that I have highlighted in the middle. That's that landfall on the east coast of Florida and kind of riding up the spine of the state. They kind of have it working a little bit more towards that east coast, east of I-75, close to the turnpike between Daytona and Orlando. So this track I have labeled as a medium impact. What that means is we're not getting the worst case scenario like they are down in South Florida. We're not getting a landfalling hurricane on our Gulf Coast, bringing us the direct impacts of a major hurricane. So that's good news. That's why it's not worst case scenario. Again, there is a worst case scenario. I'm going to get to that. But we're talking about this medium impact. This is if the hurricane, like it's tracked now, kind of right up the center, makes landfall and rides up the state. So this is a medium impact because, again, it's not the worst. We could see that direct impact from the Gulf. That's worst case scenario. if we had a weakening tropical system, again, that track had it still as a Category 1 24 hours after landfall up through parts of north central Florida. So chances are, if Dorian follows the track from the National Hurricane Center past 5-6 days working up the state of Florida, we are looking at some sort of impact. And that's going to be in the form of maybe a tropical storm, maybe a weakening tropical depression, but you can expect the gusty winds, the periods of heavy rainfall, which could be worst case for those folks down towards Taylor County, Steinhatchee. They saw more than 2 feet of rain just a few weekends ago. Those rivers are swollen. They don't want any more rain. So that could be worst case, just depending on where you live. But speaking regionally, if we're talking about the entire Big Bend in South Georgia, that's a medium impact. Again, a weakening tropical system. We can handle that. It could be worse, but we'd prefer if it took this green low impact track. Now that's if Dorian continues to slow and stalls out. There's a better chance of that upper level ridge of high pressure on the east coast breaking down, giving Dorian that escape route earlier. The earlier the better. If it rides up the coast again, that's not low impact for the folks up in the Carolinas, but for us, it is. We probably get some moisture, some rain, not the worst. Worst case scenario. So let's break it down. At least the potential. You see there's a question mark there, and that's because if this storm goes in the Gulf, we're not guaranteed a worst case scenario, but it puts it on the table, not only for us, but pretty much the entire Gulf Coast. Again, that's a wild card scenario. If Dorian passes through South Florida, kind of spits out in the Gulf near Fort Myers, we are looking at potential for Dorian to re-intensify in the Gulf. And again, the past couple of years, you don't need a refresher on what these hurricanes in the Gulf can do. So that doesn't guarantee that we're going to see anything. Dorian could spit out in the Gulf and then go west up towards Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, or Texas, and that would be another low impact scenario. But it puts that possibility on the table. So that's why it doesn't hurt to prepare now. Get those readiness kits ready, fill up the gas tank, buy some batteries, some portable chargers if you have it. Flooding going to be a biggest concern. I think locally it will, depending on the medium impact track. Again, if we get this low impact track, minimal. We're not going to be dealing with too much. But this medium impact, flooding won't be a widespread issue. It will for the peninsula, because especially if this is a slower mover, but locally speaking, Tallahassee, South Georgia, if we do get one of these slow moving, maybe a tropical storm, depression, it doesn't take a name to see some serious flooding. Folks in Taylor County know that. So I think that locally flooding will be a concern. I don't think it's going to be damaging winds unless it goes into the Gulf. This is assuming that it takes that suggested track from the National Hurricane Center, that some heavy rainfall, especially certainly for those areas towards Wakulla County. You see it's still flooded up the sides of Woodville Highway in Wakulla County, so down towards there, those coastal areas, that could be kind of a worst case for them, dealing with additional flooding to what we've seen for the past couple of weeks. We have seen some locally high rainfall totals leading to flooding, especially for those coastal communities in Taylor, Wakulla counties. They don't need more rain. No one does really in the whole state of Florida, but this is what Dorian's going to bring us. So kind of the breakdown, the main line here, that Dorian is sitting in the western Atlantic that is working towards the Bahamas as you head into the weekend, where it is expected to continue to intensify. Now again, the slower the track, not ideal for anybody, because the slower it moves over the Bahamas, that's longer that they're in the hurricane force conditions. And the Bahamas don't really weaken hurricanes too much, just a big chain of islands, so that gives Dorian more time to intensify as it just sits over those warm Atlantic waters. If it goes slow over Florida, that gives you more time kind of in the brunt of Dorian, seeing heavy rainfall. As the National Hurricane Center said again, I can quote them, the increasing risk of prolonged, drawn-out event of strong winds, dangerous storm surge, and heavy rainfall. Don't need that for 24-hour span. So just something to consider. This is a product from the National Hurricane Center. This shows the probability of seeing a 39-mile-per-hour plus winds. So basically, tropical storm force or higher. And you see these probabilities climbing essentially 100% for areas in South Florida as they do get that impact. Here up in the Big Bend, we have low chances, but we will see those climb as we get closer. So let's check out some of these comments. Watch for Taylor County. Yep, we don't need any more rain there. What about South Georgia? It's pretty much the same as all the other communities I outlined. Again, that was a very general graphic, a very broad to make that intuitive to understand what kind of impacts could be felt, a best case, a worst case, and a most likely scenario. Should we expect tornadoes? We're not really looking at that threat, again, unless Dorian maybe went in the Gulf. You could get some of those little spin-ups, those water spouts move up off the coast, but that's all speculative. Again, not talking about tornadoes in this forecast for Dorian, at least locally. speaking, looking at, you see Dorian on the left side of your screen. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We don't need to pile on, but this is just a heads up for you guys. This morning, the National Hurricane Center highlighting a new tropical wave off the coast of Africa. Not what we need, but this thing is still 2 weeks away at least, and it's looking at this development zone, 30% chance to develop in the next 2 days. So again, I don't want to pile on. We got enough going on with Dorian. This is just a heads up. There is another area of interest. We're getting into September. It's just that time of the year. It's hurricane season. We're kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of hurricane season. There is another threat out there, but not a threat to us anytime soon, if it even makes it. So we'll watch that for you. We'll mention it. But Dorian, we're going to talk about that. When would you think the Tallahassee airport would cancel flights? I don't know, John. Honestly, that is not a decision that I would be involved in. If it did get bad enough, they'd probably make those calls sometimes by the middle of next week, but I don't even really want to speculate on that. Again, if we get kind of spared from the worst of the storm, we could get lucky and not even have to worry about any real direct impact. So there's still a lot of potential on the table. Here's a reminder, download our Storm Shield app. It's in your app shop. You can get those severe weather updates, any watches, warnings, advisories straight to your phone. You can customize them. So if you don't want the dense fog advisories, whatever, you don't have to get them. You get the ones that you want. It geolocates you. You can add locations that can really send them to you wherever if you got kids at school. This is going to give you what you need. You can check out our forecast. You can check current temperatures. You can check the radar. Check the Storm Shield app. It's on the Google Play Store. It is in the iTunes Store as well. So should we be considering evacuation plans? Not yet. Not yet here in the Panhandle. That's not something that we need to worry about. Towards East Florida, down I-95, they do. So we got our wonderful morning anchor here, Angela Green. She's going to help me from talking for just a couple minutes. She's got some stuff to hit on. I will just put up the track for now, okay, so they can see that latest track. This is our latest track from Dorian. And Angela's got some information on what, sandbags and stuff for us?
Sandbags. Governor DeSantis just wrapped up a press conference about an hour ago. He did say that in some places in South Florida, they are running out of gas, and the State Highway Patrol is escorting fuel tanks to refueling stations. A lot happening more in the southern counties than they are here. But the big thing here is Florida State.
Yes.
Versus Boise State. They have thousands of people coming into our area. Tickets are still available. People are going to be out and about. You just want to be careful and pay attention to the roads, all the heavy congestion that's happening right now. No gas outages here in the area. I think some people have been saying that on social media, but that is not true. We're tracking those. You can also track gas prices on our website, WTXL.tv. That will be updated all day. We're using Gas Buddy to help people maneuver their way around in several counties. So Gadsden, Wakulla, Taylor County, Tallahassee, from about 7 in the morning to 7 noon every day. Sandbags are available if you need them. If you don't know how to use them, they will help you figure it out. But prepare now. And then later, I actually have sandbags on the back of my porch right now. Don't know what to do with them. Just, we're going to stack them, though, and make sure that nothing floods if the rain comes. But it's better safe than sorry. In Tallahassee, you can get 25 bags. In other places, there's a limit, so just call beforehand. But they want you to bring your own shovel. So just make sure you're prepared for that. Other than that, we're tracking all the developments, everything, the influx of people from hotels, whether or not they're available if you're making it to the area. I would imagine people are kind of moving north right now, trying to move from South Florida. But, we have a lot going on. I see more people are logging on asking questions. But one person did say, should you consider an evacuation plan? That is something that the governor is really stressing. Mm-hmm. A lot of the local EMAs are also telling you, have a plan in place. The Senior Elder Center in Tallahassee has a system that they will call and check on seniors if they need help. They're going to make sure that the senior citizens here have a place to go, have a place to evacuate, and that is something that a lot of people may not think about. Your neighbors who are disabled or don't have other family members around, just check on them. That's a huge push that county EMA and sheriff's offices are pushing. So just don't forget about the people who don't have family in this time, because that's something that we're always seeing. And your pets too. Mm-hmm. Have a plan for your pets in place. So, but Walmarts are running out of stuff locally. Everybody's rushing out to get water. Our producer went out last night and got some video. He was in there shopping and said that all the water was gone in one of the Walmarts. But we did talk to Walmart. They're restocking as fast as they can. So just be patient as you go out there and just pay attention. Download our First Alert app. The Storm Shield app, download the WTXL app to make sure that you're getting those push alerts as they happen. Mm-hmm. So Other than that, we have a noon show to prepare for. I know you're still working, and there's a lot of information coming down in real time. So just stick with us. We're looking forward to just keeping you guys informed. Okay?
Yes, perfect.
All right.
Thank you, Angela.
Bye.
Tune in at midday. You can see us here. I'm going to give you one more run through on Dorian for the folks who are just joining us, and then I will have to leave you as I prepare for our midday show. What can we expect in the Wakulla Crawfordville area? Barbara, I'm going to get to that right now. Again, we're going to do one more little run through for you, and then I'm going to have to go. But the latest, that outlook did come out about 20 minutes ago. 11 a.m. was the latest outlook on Dorian. Still a Category 2, expected to become a major hurricane up to a Category 3. It's only 1 mile per hour away. That's 111 miles per hour, so we're close. We'll be seeing that here soon as that eye has developed on visible imagery. That's clear now. We're going to be seeing that pressure dropping here shortly. So, expecting a Category 3. Now take a look at the track. Expected to make landfall as a Cat 4 sometime Tuesday morning. That timeline has been pushed back. Yesterday we talked about a Labor Day hurricane on the East Coast. Today we are talking about a Tuesday hurricane. Not to say that effects can't be felt on Labor Day, but the landfall and the worst of it should be by Tuesday through mid-week. So again, as Angela said, it doesn't hurt to prepare, especially up here in the Panhandle, South Georgia. Doesn't hurt. You don't have to evacuate or head out anything right away, but check the kit, fill up the gas tank, buy some water, do that good stuff. Again, those supplies on the East Coast are running thin, and that's a good thing that people are being prepared and being proactive in getting that stuff done. But it becomes a resources issue, so the sooner the better for you guys, personal standpoint. If you know it's getting to that time, make sure you do it. So Labor Day is safe. Locally, yes, Labor Day is fine. It's going to be for these folks down through South Florida on Labor Day. We're getting the storm getting dangerously close to the coast, so those impacts will be felt. If you got a Labor Day beach house rented in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, I would get your refund. I would not go on that trip. Will not be the most fun time. Again, people are heading away from that area, not towards it for Labor Day weekend, at least this year. Looking at that landfall, 24 hours later after landfall, it's only up towards Gainesville, Ocala, and it's still a Category 1. So this slow-moving storm has the potential to produce heavy rainfall, periods of prolonged, drawn-out strong winds, dangerous storm surge, localized flooding, all that stuff. Not only a Category 4 hurricane, but with the slow mover, you tack on the effects of flooding and heavy rainfall. So again, you don't want Dorian to move slow, but the slower it does move, the lower chance we have. So it's give and take a little bit. That forecast, again, I'm speaking locally, North Florida, South Georgia. Here's a look at that zoomed in cone. Pretty much the track from the early morning update at 8 a.m. They shifted this part east a little bit. So it's going to be riding up further east, the better for us. Let's break down kind of that one potential scenario. So for the folks who are commenting, asking on specific locations where you live, whether it's here in North Florida, South Georgia, look at this graphic right here. This is, again, we are far enough out where you can't exactly pinpoint specific details and specific impacts for your community. We're just not there yet. We can't forecast that far in advance for a hurricane. We have to get a few days in. So folks down towards parts of South Florida, they're getting to that time where they can kind of pinpoint those details as we inch closer to next week. We are looking at most likely this medium impact scenario right now, assuming it rides up through North Florida. Now, if it does try to veer off towards Jacksonville, then you're getting more into a low impact scenario. But I do think if we have a weakening tropical system, whether it be a Cat 1, whether it be a tropical storm, a tropical depression, or a remnant low, whatever it is by the time it makes it here, we'll be seeing some rain if it does kind of inch closer up towards Lake City instead of going east. And that will not be a widespread, worst case scenario by any means. But it does give you that potential for more flooding in areas that have been dealing with the flooding. We've seen some comments. We all know that Steinhatchee down towards Taylor County, they got absolutely hammered with heavy rainfall just 2 weeks ago. More than 2 feet, and they have swollen rivers. The ground is saturated. No more rain. Don't need it. Areas down in Wakulla County, still flooded. Don't need any more rain. So that's an issue. Again, that's more of a local impact, so you know where you live. Just speaking of, you head out every day, you see that water still pooled up, you still have any localized flooding. More rain is not going to help you. That's the medium impact. That's looking most likely. Again, the low-end scenarios, the worst case, it's on the table. It's a possibility, but the potential is low. This is if it spits out in the Gulf. That's if that high pressure that's situated over the east by early next week is a little bit stronger, and it doesn't budge, doesn't give Dorian that escape route. And if it spits out in the Gulf, that's not good news for anybody on the Gulf Coast, because that will give Dorian the chance to re-intensify once it gets out there in the open water. And that doesn't guarantee worst case. That's not saying that we're going to get hit by another hurricane, but it puts that potential on the table essentially from the Florida Gulf Coast all the way over to the Texas coast. So if it did go in the Gulf and then went west, it's not our issue, and that's another low impact scenario. But just trying to lay out all the possibilities here, whether it's worst case or best case. Best case, we're looking at this green track, and we stay more offshore, we move off into the ocean, we'll get some rain, some moisture, but that's not the end of the world. Again, it's looking right now with the latest updates from the Hurricane Center, some models get better agreement. Medium impact is probably going to be the way to go here, at least locally speaking. Again, this graphic, if you're watching from South Florida, Central Florida, anywhere else besides our coverage area, it's not catered to you, because landfalling hurricane on the East Coast, that's high impact for everyone on the East Coast. But for us, again, if it moves offshore, it's not. And if it moves up the state, it's weakening. It's not the worst thing. It's not a direct impact from a major hurricane, but you're still going to get some of those effects from heavy rainfall, locally mostly, from areas that have been seeing the heavy rainfall. So again, if you guys have any questions, I'm going to be hopping off here soon. How long have we been going? 25 minutes. That's a pretty good discussion. If you guys have any more questions, shoot them in the comments now while I'm here, because I can't guarantee that I'll see them after this. Let's just see. Let me hit this again. Just a heads up. This is not to scare any of you folks. National Hurricane Center does have a new area, a little tropical wave off the west coast of Africa they're keeping their eyes on. 30% chance to develop. Again, this is weeks away, 2 weeks away from the mainland U.S. if they made it here. Not worried about it. But just a heads up, it is getting into September. It's that time of the year we're going to be seeing a lot of these tropical waves move off the coast of Africa. So it's something to watch. I think that we should just pay attention to Dorian for now. Download the Storm Shield app, get all those watches warnings straight to your phone. You can get our forecasts. You can get pretty much anything you want. It's a great app. You get radar. I got it on my phone over here and use it all the time. One more look at the track for you if we can. There you go. There it is. Still making landfall on the southeast coast of Florida as a major hurricane. Cat 4. Autumn, when do you think it'll become a Cat 4? National Hurricane Center has it becoming a Cat 4 likely by tomorrow night or Sunday morning. So we'll keep our eyes on that. I'm thinking that we're going to be getting a Cat 3 here, major hurricane. Any update from now, we're 1 mile per hour away on the winds. We're close. We're going to be seeing that today. And the slower it goes, which has been kind of the trend, the slower trend, making its way a little bit easier through the Bahamas, that will give it more time over the warm waters. Bahamas don't really inhibit the hurricane development too much, as it's just a chain of islands, not exactly a big landmass. So I don't want to say that a Cat 5 is on the table, but anything is on the table if it's just sitting over warm ocean waters. So we got to watch that. Hurricane watches are in effect for the Northwest Bahamas. And then probably about tomorrow we'll see some hurricane watches for parts of South Florida. That's what I'm thinking. That's within 48 hours. So the biggest concern really up the East Coast, aside from a major hurricane landfalling, is going to be the heavy rainfall, locally heavy, some flash flooding there, inland flooding. Because if this thing only moves up from South Florida to parts of north central Florida near Ocala, Gainesville in 24 hours, that's a slow mover, especially if it keeps that hurricane strength. That will just go up and down and rake the I-95 corridor with damaging winds, storm surge along the coast, and heavy rainfall kind of area-wide there. So that's not an issue. Again, that's not locally speaking. That's more for those folks down up and down the I-95 corridor. If you do know people there, tell them, time to prepare. It's right now. Those preparations should be complete by the weekend. Go buy your water, buy the portable chargers, generator if you need it. If you have it, that's good. Enough food to last you a week, enough water to last you a week, just in case. Because again, if we get a landfalling hurricane, there will be power outages, and there will be prolonged power outages. So make sure that you got that plan in place. If you're up here in North Florida and you want to be, cautious, go fill up your sandbags today. I think she said you could fill up 25 or something. Just bring up your own shovel. I think in the comments we do have our link to the article on sandbag locations for different counties and times, so you can go get that done. I'm about to head out. We got to get ready for the midday show. That's going to be at noon. I'd love if you guys could join us on midday. I'm going to be giving you more of a local forecast. This was more in depth just on Dorian. Locally speaking, it's hot. It's sunny today. If you're going to the FSU game tomorrow, we got a bonus home game because the Boise State game was moved from Jacksonville. Kickoff will be at noon. Tickets are $10 general admission. You get them on the FSU website. General admission, you can sit wherever you want, so the earlier the better. if you close your eyes and imagine what a August game at noon would feel like in Doak, you're probably right. That's what the forecast is. It is going to be hot and humid at Doak tomorrow. Scattered shower storms in the afternoon, and that's about it. I think that's all I got for you guys. I appreciate you watching. Tune in to midday at noon. We're going to break down all those forecast details. We're going to have the latest news for you, and we will have more updates on Dorian as they get released from the National Hurricane Center. Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse will be providing those for you for the rest of today. I'll be back in tomorrow in the morning and at night around the FSU game. I'll be here to keep you up to date on the Saturday updates. Cass will be here on Sunday. So we're going to be, sticking with you as long as Dorian is out there and is a threat to the southeast, to anywhere really, especially to our local coverage area and breaking down those local impacts and what we'll be experiencing. Again, it's going to get clearer and clearer by the day. We'll get more clarity out of this. So one day at a time, we're going to keep our eyes on Dorian for you. Everything's going to be okay. Get those preparations done, and it's going to be all good. I appreciate you guys joining us. I'll catch you on midday. Angela and I will be giving you the latest news and, of course, your forecast details. I'll be seeing you guys later. Have a great Friday.